If your investors are willing to help, willing to make intros, willing to connect you, use them. There's a lot of things that I'm lucky to have background in. Originally grew up in a business background. Technology was just something I happened to fall into. But my father was a lawyer, my brother is a lawyer, so then I had a little bit of that space within it. Most investors will admit you're not investing in a startup nearly as much as you're investing in an operator. The operator is the number one indicator of success, and especially these days, having a technical operator as well as your commercialization operator is really, really important because you can't just have an idea. Ideas are free. Figure out how to make integration easy and minimize customization, maximize configuration. Don't just custom build anything just because. Almost everything can be solved by software out on the internet, but the focus should be integration and modularizing your system.
In addition to being a podcast host, I'm also a small business attorney, mostly providing legal services in New York and New Jersey. My firm, Beinhacker Law, at my firm, we help small businesses, entrepreneurs, family-owned businesses with things like contract drafting, corporate governance, purchases of businesses, sales of businesses, tax planning, real estate, and even estate planning. With over 3 decades of experience, we can handle most transactional issues. So if you're watching the show and you encounter some sort of legal issue, reach out to us. You can connect with us and visit our website, beinhackerlaw.com. There you can read our law blog, Insights legal blog, and you can set up a free consultation. If you want to connect, I'm on all the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and the others. So as a lawyer, I'm here if you need me. As a podcaster, thanks for tuning into the show and for continuing to support us. All right, Charles, thanks for coming on the show. You prefer Charles? I had an uncle, we used to call him Uncle Charlie. I had a friend named Chops. You guys have a lot of nicknames for Charles, right?
We definitely have a lot of nicknames. When I was young, I went by Chaz because I thought that was
Yeah,
cool.
Chaz, that's another one, right?
My grandfather was named Charlie, so I would always go by Charles. And then
There we
if
go.
you're really close to me, I'll be Chuck.
Got it. Okay. All right, we'll do Charles since you
I
and I
love it.
just met a couple of months ago. All right, so where are you located, by the way? Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from Los Angeles, California, beautiful
There you
LA.
go. Nice. So it's 3 here. It's what, noon there, roughly?
Yeah, it's about noon, right around lunchtime.
All right, good. Well, why don't we get into your story? Because I know you told me some things when we first met, your background in business, and then we can get into later in the second half, all the mergers and acquisitions and things like that you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out in management consulting, like everybody in their early ages, going through a lot of small businesses, small organizations, and revitalizing, either coming in for operational strategy or what ended up being a lot of technical strategy and IT strategy of these small either law firms or uh, manufacturing logistics companies. Their back office operations were always hindered, and it was that in that early 2000s where every CRM, no one was really using CRM appropriately.
Right.
Every accounting system was terrible, and as I was going through this process of really diving in and with these organizations, what I came to learn was there's so much in technology that is synonymous with good business operations, and grew a lot of my skill set there, grew how I would communicate with the COO or the CFO in non-technical ways and giving them technical strategy. And very quickly, we had a stable of about 60 to 70 clients underneath that we were completely changing how they would approach and become the software. Every business is a software business before that was even a moniker. From there, I then went to LA Clippers. I became CTO for LA Clippers for 8 years.
Okay.
Had a lot of amazing experiences there. Helped design the brand new stadium that you see here in Inglewood.
Nice.
Go Clips! Got to do a lot of analytical work on the basketball side as well as the business side. We had a number of big accolades for being the first NBA team to be fully cloud-based. All of our systems, both for both basketball and business, was really coming out of the dark ages in sports. And then
Because you said you were the CTO, so it was all you were running all their technology.
run all their technology, and most basketball teams, which I assume we can dive more deeply into it, but they're billion-dollar brands, but they're still kind of mom and pop, like they're small organizations. They're not
Right.
2,000,
Yeah, they
3,000,
don't
four
need
thousand
to.
people.
Yeah, they don't need that many people, right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so so technology for there, it's not just making sure that the computers are working. It's broadcast tech. It's the sports performance tech. It's the analytics, like all of
Right. That kind of
those
stuff.
different swatch, which
Right.
was
Yeah, they
amazing
don't
for
need a
me to have.
warehouse management system. It's
E-
$500,000. They need to manage like how these guys play and their injuries and right, all that kind of
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I was lucky that really broadened my concept of where technology can impact different businesses. And as I shifted into United Talent Agency, which was
mhm,
I was CTO for United Talent Agency, which in a similar way, it was very high value brand agents and folks that are the deals that they're making, every single day are massive. So
yeah,
everything that's around them, everything that supports them has to work.
yeah. So
Um,
they're negotiating player contracts and negotiating, brand deals, right? The whole thing.
they're I like to say they're matchmakers who can make anything happen with two calls. They can connect whatever you need to
Right,
whoever you need.
right.
Um, and from there, I had we had a lot of acquisitions coming through UTA at the time, and that's where my real love for that transactional M&A and really understanding the deal value and deal model and diving deep into how to structure corporate deals. And as I pivoted
You
into
didn't
a
learn
lot of
that.
the
You didn't learn that in the management consulting stuff.
no,
So
no.
these were the agency acquiring other smaller agencies.
Yeah, so in the agency world, you want to
Yeah.
try to broaden. It used to be just very singular. You were just a movie agency or a talent agency or a book agency or a gaming agency, and now they're trying to be omni-channel. So when you have a talent that comes in that might just be a TV star, you
Right.
now get them booked with this podcast. You're getting booked on a music deal, and so you can really encompass them as an entire brand entity rather than just themselves.
Got it. So it's PR and the whole thing,
The,
publicist and
the, the whole thing, yeah.
negotiations and stuff like that. Got it. Got it. Got it.
Yes.
It was
So
cross. It wasn't just NBA, right? You were dealing with all kinds
oh
of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So for UTA, we acquired Clutch Sports, which represents mostly like they were mostly known for basketball, but they're now one of the largest draft recruits for or draft representation for NFL. They have
Oh,
huge presence in the NIL world, which is your collegiate
right.
sports. Now that's
Right. Were you
a big thing.
you weren't there when NIL hit, were you?
Oh, I was there when NIL was
Oh,
one of
you were.
was really starting to like they're trying to figure out, and they're still I feel like trying to figure out
Yeah.
exactly how to monetize it appropriately. But yes,
Right. Yeah. No, that's the
yeah,
whole industry's gone nuts. These
yeah,
kids can make money even at lower levels. They make a couple hundred grand, whatever.
yeah, and I think a
Crazy.
lot of that actually was driven from if you're familiar with the creator industry. So these YouTubers, these streamers, the Mr. Beast of the world,
Right.
where our generation would have been saying, "How are you like you're playing video games? How are you making money?" But you're
Right.
actually like you're an entire brand. You've created content.
And
You've created value that somebody wants to watch. That brands now want to try to get their brand in front of your viewers and monetize in the same way. So
so
it,
they represent influencers also. It's not just sports and entertainment. But those considered
yeah.
entertainment, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the time I spent the last year with the influencer. We built a lot of platforms around how to really automate as much of the transactional and the deal flow for influencers as they got bigger and bigger. Because the archaic worlds of back and forth contract negotiations, there's no real transparency in the space. We wanted to eliminate
Right. 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 Okay. So how
that.
long were you with them?
So I was with them for about 3 years.
3 years. Okay. And so
Yeah.
that now we're talking. What year was that? So about what time?
So I left February of last year, and then I've been in the VC world since then. So I started up my own SaaS platform called Investmate, and the Investmate.io for anybody
Hmm.
who's interested. As AI really took off, and I was becoming a voice within the LA space around AI and pushing that to help any sort of business get into whatever their um, their best niche is. Investment was the concept of, can I take an idea,
Hmm.
work with AI, and in 30 to 45 minutes have a fully baked out business plan, investment analysis, financial analysis, market analysis, all those things that usually are barriers to entry for most people to even not know where to start.
Yeah.
It's like Y Combinator, but in a platform. And from there, that grew my entire VC space.
So like you end up with a pitch deck and the whole thing, so you can raise
Yeah,
money or whatever you're looking to do.
yeah, it's data room in a box. So it is taking something that is very, very formulaic in people who are experienced. It's a very formulaic process, but then adding your own creative spin to it so that it is translated to how an investor needs to see it. The number of investors I work with, even during my time with UTA and with Clippers, I worked a lot with these startups that are just trying to get in as advisors, or they are trying to change and pivot from the regular public sector into sports. And a lot of the struggles that they would have is they just didn't have a well prepared packaged narrative. It's hard to give a 30-second pitch if you're trying to say, well,
Right.
we're this and this and that and
Right.
this. And
No,
so,
these guys are all over the place.
yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I guess if you're an angel or a VC or whatever, you get this stuff coming over across your desk all the time. If it's not well packaged, you're just going to push it aside,
Yeah.
move on.
Most of the angels get overwhelmed. A lot of the angels that I advise, they're so overwhelmed. And so what they
Yeah.
want is really clean, de-risk deal flow. And
Right.
historically, that meant a guy who here has his ear to the ground. He goes to all of the different parties. But now you are starting to see it transition into more of the remote model of you can get deal flow through other methods, and then de-risking that is the biggest priority.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to whittle it down. So if
Mhm.
something's not easy to read and it's not well packaged, you're just going to push it aside. You're not going to look at it.
Exactly.
So your model is it's almost like an incubator, but a virtual incubator, right? You don't have like a maker space somewhere, right, where people are using cubicles,
Yeah.
building
So,
models.
the original SaaS platform is exactly that. It's like a virtual incubator that scales via product versus via person. So
Okay.
many the issues that most accelerators or incubators have is they have a playbook, but they have somebody who has to like teach you and coach you through
Right.
those different pieces. So it was the virtual incubator, and then um, more recently, I partnered up with two other big names in the technology and in the broadcast space for Scaffold Studios, which is an incubator, an accelerator, and then the studio as a service model. So whether it's an internal idea that is still just an idea, but you need to find the funding, you need to find the operators, you need to find those pieces, that goes in the incubator. If you already have the accelerator there, then we have the space to bring you into the framework manifesto that we created that has been repeated over and over through success over the past 3 years.
But it's still both all virtual.
No, well, we just opened the first incubator here in El Segundo.
Got it. So that's a go-to workplace.
It's a go-to workplace that is for select portfolio companies that it works for. We
Yeah. I mean,
we
so they
we,
have
we
to
like the
apply
vert.
to you, right? Yeah.
Sorry, say again.
They have to apply to you, kind of like Y Combinator,
Yeah.
right? You don't have
Well,
room for everything.
you apply through investment, or you are recommended through one of our investors.
Okay. And the virtual platform for startups, is that like a DIY kind of a program because it's
Yeah,
SaaS?
it's that. So the investment is DIY. It's free for any entrepreneur that wants to take an idea. You can iterate as many different times as you want, and then after that, we're able to help either connect you, but we're also utilizing a lot of the incoming operators as to profiles who are the next operators of the future, who are the next founders, who are the people that might not be in this space or have been successful yet, but they have a lot of the qualities and features that we've seen successful in the data from the past 20 years of both successes and failures, and at pre-seed, seed, basically ideation to go to market.
And you say it's all within the sports management entertainment space mostly?
So I tend to yeah, that's my background. So I would say I tend to get pulled into a lot more of those deals as the expertise. But AI driven development is the base of the manifesto. If we can move very, very quickly from idea to an actual MVP, and then to a go-to-market that is meaningful without spending 3-4 years trying to figure out what the perfect product market fit is, developing a lot of those pieces. So that's why, yes, sports and entertainment are much easier for me to just off the cuff say that's working. This is your pivot. But we do work with just about anybody who is willing to embrace those manifestos.
Got it. So what would you say? Because we talk about a lot about this on the show, right? And I was just talking earlier about you know, preparation and research and doing your numbers. What kind of things do you see of the deals that come, of the people that come to you, these, let's say, incubators or startups, what that they're doing wrong to start off?
So the number one thing that most startups that are doing wrong, and why I created the investment platform,
Yeah.
is just follow the blueprints that are out there. Go to or Y Combinator's website. They have their blueprint of what documents you need to have. Go to any of your local accelerators. Heck, even use ChatGPT to say, "Hey, help me refine my business idea." Because more often than not, they have what I call the dump, where they just dump all their knowledge
Right.
into their deck, and now it's 20 pages of just. It might make sense to them because they're
They're like, oh,
continuously
the more
talking to this.
information I have, the more impressive I'll look, right? But it just
Yeah,
confuses people, and they're like, yeah, they don't get it.
yeah, and most investors will admit you're not investing in a startup nearly as much as you're investing in an operator.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
The operator is the number one indicator of success, and especially these days, having a technical operator as well as your commercialization operator is really, really important, because you can't just have an idea. Ideas are free. I tell everybody there's nothing I've ever thought of that's secret to me.
Right.
If I have an idea that you want to hear about it, you don't have to sign an NDA. I don't care. If you do it, do it. If you can
Right.
execute, that's really, really important. But that's the hard part for a lot of these first time entrepreneurs, or people who are trying to maybe leave a operational role into their own first startup, and they get overwhelmed, and so then they kind of go back to just brain dumping every single opportunity that they can tell somebody about it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's why, like, you find like these SPACs and stuff that are blank check companies.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a company looking for an operator and somebody writes a
Mm-hmm.
check, but they do have operators looking for ideas. And if the person's impressive enough, they'll write them a check and say, Charles, go find a business. So, I mean, it makes sense, right? That's all they're investing. I've told a lot of young investors when I'm working with them, maybe they're not ready for an incubator. Maybe it's just an idea. Maybe it's just a local business, not really raising
Mm-hmm.
money. I said, if people are going to put money into your business, they're going to doing it because of you. And if they don't have
Yes.
confidence in you and your ability to execute and how you come across and your ability to sell and your ability to communicate an idea, the rest of it's kind of like you said, the rest of it's kind of BS. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's no, market cornered on ideas. Everyone's got different ideas and different approaches. And the guys I see, really good ideas, really bad execution, don't go anywhere. Okay idea, really good operator and execution, they're successful because they work the idea and they fix it and they do stuff. But that's the reality.
And even when they're not successful, the
Yeah.
investor will invest in their next idea. Like that,
Yeah.
that's something that
Right.
I have to remind people is your first startup might be absolutely a failure, but the amount that you learn from it, and in the models that we've seen, the first failure can make an even more successful operator for the next one, because they
Right.
have learned knowledge that's not just theoretical, not from a book. It's actually, what it felt like to have to fire or to let people go because you don't have enough cash flow, or what it was like when you're meandering and getting nervous in a pitch, and
Right.
now you learn to just be yourself, have a conversation, and storytelling starts to weave through it, but you have a consistent narrative that really resonates with the person across the table.
Yeah, I think that angel investors kind of have that expectation. If you're a first timer and you're just getting started, their expectations are that this is a little bit more risky than if I met you two shots down the road and you failed and you learned all this stuff and you're doing it differently. And like you said, you've dealt with employees, you know about burn rate, you know how to do things. And that's why it goes from angel to VCs, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you now have more experience and they don't want to take that kind of, first out of the box risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And angels also, in my experience, have a lot more passion. So the
Right.
things that they're going to be investing in, they're doing it because it's not their only source of revenue.
Right.
VCs, they have to hit
Yeah. They got
their
quotas
exactly.
and whatever pressure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and it's
we
not
call it.
PE,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Exactly. Right. Well,
Yeah,
you call it passion. I call it tolerance. Like, right.
yeah,
I think angels have
that's
more
true.
tolerance for failure because they know, it's like a penny stock business, right? You
Hmm.
just, you're going to hit 1 out of 10, maybe 1 out of 50. I mean, I don't know, but if you
Yeah,
do, it'll be an Amazon or whatever, hopefully,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
and I think in a similar way, that the first time founders really, if your investors are willing to help, willing to make intros, willing to connect you, use those. There's so many times I've seen these first time founders that will come into their business and then they go into tunnel vision and just focus, focus, focus. And they don't realize how many other connections could be helpful to them, whether it is getting through legal issues, and they don't want to talk to their investor because they don't want to scare them. No, your
Right.
investor's there. They want
Yeah,
to do everything to make you
of
successful. So
course.
don't hide. Be transparent, and you'll be absolutely surprised how much they can really help you out.
Yeah, no, that's a good piece of advice because I think that you're right. You're nervous to be honest with your investor because you don't want to scare them away, right? But
Hmm.
in the reality of it is they have a wealth of knowledge and connections and networks and everything to help you, and they're only interested in helping you because it only helps
Yes.
them. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people. I'm also big on advisors, mentors, advisory
Hmm.
board type of things. So, if you're setting up even a preliminary advisory board for the business, obviously those people should be on that board. So, why wouldn't you tap into their experience and wealth of knowledge? That's why they call it an accelerator. They don't call it an accelerator because you go and there's something in the air. It's
Yeah.
because the people that are running it and the contacts you make and how you can speed up what you're doing.
And I mean, I will say there are good and bad accelerators that I've
Yeah, of
seen,
course.
where like the shared services or the PE model, where they come in and they want to gut the entire back office, they want to force everything, and some of that can absolutely stifle innovation and stifle momentum. But there are amazing accelerators that really do say, like, you focus on like really getting your idea to the market. We will help surround you with some of the best resources, and maybe not full time, even if it's like fractional, but you don't
Right.
have to worry about the pieces that you're not super experienced with.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, it
yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
So you floated with the agency through COVID, right?
yes,
How
and
did that
two
affect
return
the
to
business?
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, COVID, surprisingly, UTA was brilliant prior to COVID, is when they really launched the music side of the business, and that helped tremendously, as well as the podcast side of the business. And so their audio as a whole, I would say, was a reigning success out of all the agencies in town, because now everybody was at home listening to Spotify, listening to
Right.
podcasts, listening to X, Y, and Z, and they had some of the biggest names. And so I would say that was not the biggest crush that you would think in the industry. The strikes, on the other hand, that was a huge hit to the industry last year.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing kind of came to a screeching halt. Nobody's making scripts. You can't
No,
really
yeah,
record it.
yeah, exactly.
Nobody's writing.
And there's no
So,
technology in the world that can fix that, unfortunately.
right.
So,
Can you share without disclosing private information? But can you share any of the businesses that you've seen and worked with?
yeah.
Yeah.
During my time with the LA Clippers, that's when we acquired the Forum. So
Hmm.
LA Forum, from the Dolan family, the famous LA Forum. It's the third most highest revenue venue in the world. It was my first, I would say, foray into understanding pre-deal, deal, and then post-deal integration, and the in the space of having to take and basically rip this business out from another business that fully operated shared services from across the nation into our own was a great learning lesson. And this was, again, 2 weeks after COVID and everything shut down. We're having to do the majority of this diligence work in the transition period, right as the world's shutting down. No one can go in. We can't go on site. We were getting all of our employees to be able to work from home themselves. So that was a great learning lesson of 80-hour weeks getting through
Yeah, this didn't just
the
stop the deal. Nobody wanted to do
no
that. Is
no.
that
Well, we could.
The same Dolans that are on the East Coast?
Yeah, so the
Nick?
Dolans that own the Knicks, yeah.
Right. So he was
Yeah.
selling the forum, but the forum is probably a business in and of itself, right? It's got, because it's operating, it's got events, it's got to run, and so they were using some of the services. I got it.
They were using, yeah, so they were using some of the services. There's a lot of custom services in the live events space that the different venues around the world have built custom software for, say, booking, or for how they manage in-house events and whatnot. And so we had to quickly we didn't have access to a lot of those services, so we had to quickly build on top of it. But that allowed our experience from live events and what you would normally do for whether it's broadcast for a live event, led into our virtual broadcast when we had the pandemic playoffs. So 2 months later, we are now shooting and made a pseudo mini studio in the Clippers offices that we had 50 of our fans that were watching from home with their webcams on, and doing what it felt like in the arena. We had the host there that we were cutting to them to tell them to make some noise, get excited, and had a live feed from Florida that then we fed back all 50 of those participants. That's who you saw on the sidelines at the playoffs there.
Yeah, that's when it was in a bubble, right? There's no.
Yeah, the bubble.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where you had to be real creative to engage and keep people engaged. It was nuts.
Yeah,
but it was, technology-wise, I think we jumped ahead like 15 years of where we would be. That would have been a 100%. Slow progression, Yeah.
Well, I mean, and in broadcast, a black screen for a quarter of a second would be death to people 10 years ago, before COVID. Right. And now we've realized, we're just going to wait, and it'll buffer, and it'll come back, and it'll be fine. And so a lot of the technology that was being, I guess, skirted or not wanting to be adopted earlier prior to COVID is now well adopted. You have remote productions happening all over the world. You have Remy, where you can almost shoot a full game itself with your camera operators on site and everybody else from either their homes or other production studios. So it's definitely changed. Going back to the transactions, that was something that, as I moved from Clippers to UTA, one of the other big transactions was MediaLink. So MediaLink was a very large marketing firm and marketing agency that was a black book. They were the ones who could make introductions to the who's who of anywhere around the U.S. A very, very influential owner and president, and that was a very different type of acquisition, where you are taking over everything. So you're not dealing with nearly as many of the hooks that are back into home ship, but you're dealing with culture, and you're dealing with changing systems, and even as small as moving from like a Gmail to an Outlook can be completely life-changing for folks. And that's what was the best experience we went through, for both how we valued the deal initially, how we went through integration, and how we kept pushing their what they were good at, bringing it into the culture at UTA, and what we were really good at, and bringing that to the folks from MediaLink, whether it's systems wise or whether it's just processes and ways that we would approach different things. So that was another really large multi six-figure, multi-$100 million deal.
So you were working on the physical side. You're doing systems integrations, management integrations. You're not dealing with the paper side of it, where they're contracting these things and valuing stuff, right?
So
we're involved in a little bit of all of it.
So I was involved in it, a little bit involved in it because at the time there's a lot of these there's a lot of things that I'm lucky to have had background in. Originally, grew up in a business background, so business, like technology was just something I happened to fall into.
Okay.
But my father was a lawyer, my brother is a lawyer, so then I had a little bit of that space within it. So very quickly in M&A negotiations, I started getting pulled all to pre-deal before we even really go into diligence, then the
Hmm.
real diligence, and then the post-deal integration, and basically pulling all the pieces together and keeping everybody happy. So that I was lucky to have. That's where the majority of the really big deals where I got to be on all sides of it.
Got it. Like deal
Yeah.
management, basically,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? All right. Why
Yeah.
don't we take?
And valuing it. Sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. Why don't we take a commercial break for a minute or two? Um, give some props to the little sponsors I have, and then we can maybe talk about since you were going to tell us why your nickname is what your nickname is, and then we can maybe talk. I was talking to somebody a while ago about for small businesses, can acquisitions be a method of business development? Can you grow
Mhm.
by acquisition instead as a small business owner? Obviously, if you're the Clippers, you can
Mhm.
buy the forum, but most people aren't living in those kind of lives. So maybe we can do that. Let's take a quick commercial and then we'll come back.
I love that.
I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Evenue. It's the all-in-one platform for small businesses. So maybe you're getting your calendaring from one software and you're invoicing from another, and you are marketing through another one, running your email system and all those types of things, docu-signing, documents. Evenue is a platform that we use as one of our sponsors to run our entire business. So we take all those tools and it merges them all into one. And there's other features like auto payments and integrations with QuickBooks, social media marketing management, and funnels that'll really allow you to run your whole business. So if you want to learn more about those tools that we use, visit evenue.com, EVONUE.com to learn more. There's also a link in the show notes. And be sure to tell them that the Accidental Entrepreneur referred you. All right, Charles. So we're back talking about mergers and acquisitions. So you said at the beginning in the opening, which I guess if you're watching the video, you hear the opening, that you have a nickname. So what's your nickname?
So my nickname is the Hurricane CTO, and I've adopted the hurricane approach to tackling problems.
Okay, so do it. What is it? What's the hurricane approach?
The hurricane approach it was a nickname that was given when I was at the Clippers of when things are going down, I am jumping into the middle of the chaos to whether it's untangling different the broadcast lines, trying to troubleshoot why the entire network's down, or the practice facilities HVAC is blown up, and we have an entire junior basketball team coming in. A lot of the approach to it is just jumping in and starting to do what I call binary troubleshooting. And so the hurricane method, it's a structured approach that I developed, as one would say, but to solve complex problems by breaking it down more and more simply. And the way that you go about it is you're in that middle of when you're in that middle of that hurricane, you can feel the calm of the storm the more you try to eliminate all the distractions. And you do that by binarily going through is if you're trying to solve a problem, try to go to one extreme. If that's not if the problem hasn't been able to be fixed, so like if the network is down, turn absolutely everything to one side, and then if it's still being an issue, turn it absolutely to the other side. And now that fixed it, but it's still not completely fixed, so all right, here's now the side that I want to go. And then you keep making options to try to cut off 50% of what the problem could be, so you slowly go through the root cause to systematically test those extremes in a way that still makes sense and that you can track. But by the end of it, everybody goes, how the heck did you even think to do that? In reality, you're just kind of
Just cut it.
trying.
You cut it
Yeah.
down. You worked your way in. So, but you're dealing with basically sudden events, like you said,
Yeah.
like the HVAC system goes down, all the networks are down, you have no power in the building, whatever, and you're like, what the? Like today, like in here.
What did it? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
in London right now, the
Exactly.
airport's out, and even if you think of the systematic way of how air traffic control, you you have to quickly start diverting planes, and you can't just do it all at once. You have to go through a proper process. I'm not air traffic control, so I couldn't tell you exactly how they did it or how well they did it. But
Right.
in those situations, it's better to be in the middle of it all versus on the outside and just lofting. Well, we could do this, or what about this, or what about, like, the theory has to stop at that point. You need to get into execution and start making decisions quickly, and do it in a way that you're building the ability to back out. So you're not breaking. So the binary troubleshooting isn't trying to break things that you can't undo. It is focused on using those extremes to solve very technical things through smaller composable pieces.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably what happened. And it was probably a good case study in how do you deal with stuff like that. It was bad enough
Yeah.
when that Microsoft bug like knocked down like 90% of the systems across. My wife was traveling with my daughter for her birthday and her
Hmm.
friends, and their luggage got stuck on the airplane out on the tarmac for like 3 days. They had to stay home.
Yeah.
They couldn't travel. It was just nuts because there was no system to tell them where the luggage was or whatever. It was just crazy. But I can imagine if everything just went down in Heathrow. There's planes coming in, there's planes going out, there's planes in the air.
And like, I
I
think
can't
it's
imagine.
a testament to how different and complex the maturity of different organizations are. So, for example, what was it, 2 years ago when Southwest went down because they hadn't upgraded their systems in
Right.
15 years or something. And last year, when Microsoft bug hit everything, Southwest was the only one
It was
that was
affected
up
because they
because
all
they
have the new
still
stuff.
haven't upgraded
Right.
their systems,
Oh, is
like
that what it
everybody
was?
else.
They were still on
Yeah,
the old
they
systems?
were still on the old systems, and so when you start adding more complexities of when you're trying to now integrate all these different pieces for Heathrow, it might have been something that it would be up the line. They wouldn't even know because of the generator didn't kick on because the switch that usually is monitoring line voltage shorted out or something like that. Like,
Right.
that's why trying to go in so confidently that you know what the solution is sometimes a very bad approach because you're biased and now you're just trying to only fix in that one way.
Right.
When the more and broader you can get out, then you can start seeing environmentally where all the things that could be affecting
Right.
things.
Because in a system like that, there's so many people that have touched so many parts in different times
Hmm.
at different places. My son works for a warehouse logistics company that programs software
Hmm.
for companies to manage their inventory. But every single time, it looks like they're not competent, but it's not true. Every single time they go to install and they spend 2 weeks going live, as soon as they go live, something happens because there's something
Hmm.
going on with some other piece of software that they integrate with that because the new system's doing something, it causes the other software. There was no way to test that until
Yeah.
everything comes to a screeching halt and the data's getting deleted or something like that. And things are complex.
Yeah, and it's a guiding principle I have when I'm talking to advisor or when I'm advising startups of stay as agnostic and modular as you can. Don't
Right.
think of any technology in the brand name. So don't say we use Microsoft's Azure SQL. It's we use a database, a relational database, because now you can flip that from Azure to
Right.
AWS or from SQL to Postgres, et cetera, et cetera. And in reality, these modern apps can be so simplified, and that's how you get away from something like what your son ran into, because it was so complex. And usually it's complex because you have your engineers who try to build redundancy and redundancy after redundancy, but in reality, most time building redundancy adds human error to the equation, and it's now not transparent, and the only person that knows how to fix it is that one engineer that put that line of code in there
Right.
20
That's the
years ago.
problem. Yeah, exactly. And he's not
Yeah.
there anymore. Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you want to eliminate the get hit by the bus moment. So you want to be able to have anybody get hit by a bus and it will still go, because you can quickly jump in and identify an issue.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of supports the idea of having multiple, sometimes you look at an organization and they have different systems that have been put in at different times. And they've learned how to communicate and they've not patchworked them together, but I have a
Yeah.
guy, a friend of mine's in technology. That's what he does. He sets up systems to communicate in the manufacturing side. But everybody's like, no, we want an all-in-one. We're going to put in this all-in-one system, and and then you end up with more problems because
Oh
you
yeah.
have this all-in-one system, and something doesn't work, and then the whole system goes down. and you don't have these other modules. So it's a
Well,
constantly a
it,
battle.
and it's similar to, do you want each one of your modules to be built by somebody who that was their only focus? Like they
Right.
are the best at building accounting systems. They are the best at building matter management systems or deal systems or CRMs or whatever that may be. Or do you want one that started out as one of them and then acquired a bunch of other ones, jammed it all together? They don't really care about all those pieces.
Yeah.
They only know how to do a CRM well, or they only know how to do et cetera. And so
That's the part. Yeah.
my focus would be figure out how to make integration easy and minimize customization, maximize configuration. Don't just
Yeah.
custom build anything just cause. You should, almost everything can be solved by software out on the internet, but the focus should be integration and modularizing your pieces there.
Right. Yeah. Any of the law firm management systems that are out there, there's probably a half a dozen of them. They all fall short in one area. You know, one of them is better at managing your calendar if
Mm-hmm.
you're a litigator, which I don't do. One of them is better at billing and so forth. One of them better at so you can't, like, for a guy like me, it's just not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm better off with picking, like you said, the best billing system that works for me, the best calendar management system that works for me, the best, software, billing, what is it, like QuickBooks or whatever I use for accounting,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't need like half of the stuff, and then it doesn't work the way you want it to, and they're not good at everything. They're usually bad at it, you
Yeah,
know?
and you want to be able to, if you hate QuickBooks and you want to flip over to NetSuite, you want to flip over to something
And
else,
then you got to give up the
it
whole system, basically.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's where the modularity comes in of like every piece of tech that you're putting into a place, and this is an important thing for new business owners, whether or not software or regular, is
yeah,
think agnostically. We have a CRM. We don't have Dynamics. We don't have Salesforce. We have a CRM. It might be Dynamics, but it could be something else in 2 years. It might be
right,
Salesforce or HubSpot, but you have to think about it like agnostically for what it's accomplishing. And
right,
now, as those modules fit together, if one you don't like, flip that out, bring something else in. But then these other ones don't get affected because they're thinking about them agnostically, not that has to be a Salesforce specific module.
right, exactly. And maybe they go in a little bit different direction than you need for your business. So you switch to something else that's been keeping up with you. It has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with your business. It has to do with their decision to support whatever it is they support. So yeah, I find that constantly. And sometimes it's a
Yeah.
challenge, things change and they got to communicate. But I mean, it's the reality of the world, I think, in terms of the way
Yeah.
things operate. Yeah.
Yeah, and with AI was able to be built on the API explosion in the past 10 years, where
Right.
in the past, way back when, you used to have these things called EDIs, which was the data integration. So the custom data integration that you
Okay.
pay a contractor to come in for your logistics warehouse system to talk to QuickBooks or to talk to NetSuite or something.
Right.
Those are going away because they created all these connectors. We have the connector ecosystem that everything can connect to
Right.
everything else.
Right. Like
That is why
Zapier,
AI,
API.
yeah, like exactly. Zapier is a great example. If this, then that. But that's why AI was able to take off so quickly, because it didn't have to rely on some EDI expert to come in and hook into your local QuickBooks. It grabs the Zapier connection, and now it can do amazing things. And so it was able to grow, and these businesses, these micro SaaSes, were able to create really, really quick value with 2, 3, more or less integration clicks.
Yeah. I mean, I do that. I couldn't have done it 10 years ago. It's expensive. I'm a
Yeah,
solo guy. I had a small firm at the
yeah,
time. It's just not going to
yeah,
work. But I can take a Zap that takes something from my Calendly onto my email list and then sends them out emails now.
yeah.
Couldn't do it.
And it's a good way to look at AI when I speak about, oh, everybody thinks it's going to be replacing our jobs, but if you can think in a way of how would I want to do something, it's pretty easy with a non-technical mindset to go, okay, and with a Zapier, when this type of email comes in, I want it to get categorized, get this reply, send it back, and then send me a text message, say, hey, this bill just came in, the wire can go out. Because you have that business process manually in your mind. Now just
Right.
digitize it in that way. So
Yeah. No, I think AI makes it easier for the entrepreneur, for the smaller organization to do things where they don't have the capital to hire 50 people when they really only need 5 now. So
yeah,
You know,
I truly think we're going to see the first $1 trillion business that is run by 3 people here in the next 5 years.
yeah, I'm not surprised. So, but it'll affect big corporate America, right? Because they don't need as many bodies to do the things that they used to have to do. It's just a shift, in the small business market versus the large corporate market. That's what you're going to see. I mean, people still have a job. We still got to buy
Oh
things.
yeah, we're absolutely. I don't think there's going to be a job scarcity as long as people are continuing to embrace being curious and being adaptable and being willing to see what's next. In corporate America, that's actually one of the reasons why I don't think I could ever go back to corporate America is you're turning battleships in bathtubs. It
Right.
is
That's
so
a good analogy.
hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so hard to get some of these things that everybody agrees is the most valuable thing we should do, but it takes forever to get
Right.
them to
Right.
pivot. And now I think that's where small businesses have a huge advantage. You can get, in 24 hours or less, if you have an idea, we could get you your business plan and we could get you incorporated. We could get you your EIN. We could get you your business account. We could get you your accounting. Like we could get you from 0 to
Yeah.
60 so quickly, and it's not complicated because you didn't have you didn't have a lawyer do 18 different documents. You didn't have a tax accountant, so you have the transparency like we were talking about earlier, that
Hmm.
then now you bring in those experts to already work with the base that is perfectly there. So that's where small businesses are going to be the ones who take over a lot of big opportunities because they can move quickly.
Yeah. Well, I think, and we were going to get into it anyway, right, about mergers and
Hmm.
acquiring companies. That's why if you build a decent business and you do it right from the beginning, as opposed to just running it like a lifestyle business, you sell to these larger companies that have, I don't know, let's say a 5 to 7 times multiple,
Hmm.
because it costs the corporation an 8 to 10 times multiple or a 15 times multiple to do it themselves because they can't move there. It's better for them to pay you extra money because you've developed the idea. If you position yourself right and you do that and keep that in mind.
Well, and it is what we were talking about earlier of who are the best operators.
Yeah.
They're the ones who they're successful because they actually can operate a business. They're the ones that are going to get the investment. Investors are
Right.
looking for operators much more than they are for startups. And in the same way, if you're a proven business person and you have the numbers that support that acquisition, you are going to look much better than trying to do it internally, which almost is what 72% of all internal projects fail.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
it's you
And
shouldn't even be close to that, right? I know.
yeah, and so you acquire, and even if it's an acqui-hire, you now just brought in institutional knowledge that you don't have internally, and proven ways to go about creating that business piece of your business. And then I think you also were asking, is it smart for those small businesses potentially acquire another business to better package themselves if they were going to try to get acquired? And again, I would say you're multiplying your background and ability to execute and showing
Right.
you've been able to do this and perform. You're now growing that multiple that you can get, but you might have to get creative with the deal making of how you do the equity or the
Right. You could
earnouts there.
do right, exactly. You can do financing, you could do a merger, you can share profit. I mean, you don't have to be writing a check. People go, I don't have the money
Yeah,
to do that. Well, people don't just buy business or write checks.
no,
That's not even a good way to acquire a
yeah.
business. Yeah,
Yeah, and
especially like
it's I would say some of my favorite lawyers are the ones who get creative to teach you to show you how to really make that deal happen because any deal can happen.
yeah,
I've said it 1,000 times over. Any deal can happen. You just have to
yep,
be able to find the narrative that makes sense.
yeah,
And there's a lot of the times where it doesn't make financial sense and you can't make it happen. But that's not because you weren't able to write the right narrative. It's because the debt or the
right.
technical
It
limitations or
wasn't
the
a good
integration
deal
costs.
anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
I close a lot of deals for clients that they're like, I don't think, this is such a great thing, but how are we going to make that nice? And we figure it out because it
Yeah.
was a good acquisition, because it was good for both companies to come together. You'll make it happen. But if it's only good for one and not the other, I mean, I get small law firms that come to me, and they've come to me in the past, hey, we'll merge, whatever. And the guy's retiring, wants to write him a check for $750,000. I'm like, for what? Like, we're
Yeah.
a services business. You're not there. I don't know if your clients are going to keep working with us or not. Yeah, I'll pay
Yeah.
over time out of the earnings and whatever. And they don't, they don't understand that. But yeah, I
But
think you're right. I think creative deal making is an art, definitely.
yeah, and being able to I mean, I assume you go through a lot of what I have to do translating technical to regular business terms. You're translating the way to execute the legal, the legality side of
Right.
things to business terms. So somebody like one of those businesses that doesn't understand, wait, no, just give me my big paycheck because I'm giving you my business, and you're saying,
Right.
yeah, as soon as you leave, all those people that were only there because of you,
Yeah.
they're gone.
There's no
So
guarantee.
that's not a business.
Yeah.
You haven't created a product, and it's also why I say create products as often as you can, and not people businesses.
Right.
You can't scale people anywhere nearly as much as you can scale products. So even if you're a services business such as yourself, you're trying to create a scalable product so that when you do walk away, there is this engine that is continuing to go and isn't relying on having to get more talent and more
Right.
talent and more talent and more
Yeah.
talent. So.
That's the challenge in a professional services business, even a
Mhm.
medical practice, right? Can that's why, like, when they acquire these medical practices, they don't acquire the practice, they acquire it with the doctors. They need somebody to
Yeah.
provide the services. So
Mhm.
without those doctors, the patients go somewhere else. So you can't, you can't guarantee that it's going to work. So if you're in a service business, professional or not professional, but like you said,
Mhm.
services, they're provided by skilled individuals. You better figure out a way that your business is not totally reliant on you.
Mhm.
Maybe you stay on for 6 months or a year, but you don't want to stay on for 10 years. So,
Yeah.
you got to figure that. And I'm not saying it's an easy thing. Like in my world, I can't just, hire a bunch of people to do what I do necessarily. I have to
Yeah.
develop them over time and figure that.
Or develop platform, like that's where some of the
Yes,
proprietary
some of it
platforms
you can
do make
do.
sense,
Yeah.
right? There are certain things, especially with AI, where you're already like with this podcast, the amount of manual work that you used to have to do to just to be able to put something as professional as this out there, that
Correct.
you can productize in a way that you don't need 9 different people to do each one of those steps. Like that's
Right.
the way that when I'm talking with, say, a law firm, or accounting is another really good one.
Mhm.
Is like you need to find your special sauce that is more, because you can't just rely on bodies to scale, because now OpEx, you're just trying to kill OpEx when you're trying to
Of
make your
course.
books look better. So
And
yeah,
then you need to get rid of these people and you got to be able to replace them. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. The podcast, I've offloaded a lot of stuff because
yeah.
and it's become easier. You're right, because of AI and the way these systems work, and they create show notes. Everything gets downloaded, and my VA does it. And I don't do it. I used to do it by hand and have to write this stuff. And,
But
it's just
that's not
crazy.
valuable for you to do, right? And that's where AI is a perfect, like, and that's where I feel a lot of folks get AI mixed up with. The best way to use AI is to do things that you don't want to do. The
Right,
best way, like the processes, the systems, the taking notes is extraordinarily cumbersome, and what our brains as humans can only hold so much information in one sitting. And that's it.
yeah,
That's all we're going to be able
correct.
to do. So reverse that thinking of, okay, I will be able to let it synthesize everything and then give me just enough that I can take those pieces and then move on, and
Yeah,
then move to the next piece. So that's where
yeah. That's how we
I try
produce
to tell
blog
people.
articles now. I don't have the time to be
Yeah.
writing articles every week, but AI can generate topics, can generate outlines for me, can make it easy for me, so I can read them, correct them, make sure they're good, rewrite them, and do 10 articles in the time it would have taken me to do one.
Yeah,
So
and it's still your expertise, and it's your voice,
yeah,
it's your opinion. It's
correct.
just not having to do every step of the way. It is, you are the special sauce that feeds into the algorithm.
Right, right, right. Yeah. So I think a good lesson for businesses today is to, learn to equip your business with more technology, things that can be automated. Don't be doing, $25, $50 an hour work when you're billing out $150 an hour when you shouldn't be doing it. Doesn't mean you necessarily need to hire somebody. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just need a piece of software. Maybe you got to make some things communicate. And I'm always a believer that it can be done, right? If you
Mm.
need to send out, as a lawyer, you need to send out review letters every time I finish a matter. There's got to be a way to automate that. You just got to figure out how to
Mhm.
do it and, do the research and stuff.
And there's blueprints everywhere.
Yeah, you
Whatever
mentioned
business you
that earlier.
have, go
Right.
whatever business you have, even if it's a lawn mowing business, I guarantee you there's free blueprints out there of how to do it, and that's
Yep.
80% of the work. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Absolutely. You can find sample business plans for probably any industry and use that as a template. And and build it from there. And you need, by the way, you know, you need that kind of stuff, even if you're not like raising capital right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, right? I mean, you got to have a track to run on. You got to know what you're doing. You got to be able to follow things. I was talking to somebody this morning. She's a numbers person. She wants to know every month what her numbers look like because it helps her sleep at night. A lot of people don't do that. They're just so caught up in their business. It's so great. Everything's great. They don't want to know. And then they don't realize that they're like losing money, literally losing money very slowly. And then you might as well just go on vacation and enjoy yourself because you're going to be out of business anyway, you know, and that's a big part of it. But I'm sure people that are doing in your system, in your ecosystem, learn that stuff, you know, to put that stuff together.
And that's the thought is you're not using AI for absolutely everything from creative. It's just going to create a business for you and run it. It is going to give you the framework that you sit on, that you will learn through osmosis. And so as you can iterate through, you're now having best practices, and your special sauce adds that extra 20% on top of it. But you don't have to go to MBA school. You don't have to live in the Bay Area. You don't have to be the finance guy from whatever it may be. Like, you just get to be you and what you're passionate about, and then work through the framework.
Great. Okay, so before we wrap up today, what's the best way for people to, and we'll put links in the show notes, but for people to interact with you, learn from you, find out about your program and your platform? What's the best way to do it?
You can find me at charlessims.com. Take the hurricane quiz to see what type of hurricane leader you are and what your approach may look like. And our book will be coming out soon, later this year, or the next pivot with Charles Sims anywhere podcasts are available.
Okay, great. Well, send us a link to the book when it's available, and we'll see if we get it out to our listeners. Can't thank you enough. I know it's about midday there, and it's 4:00 here. So enjoy the weekend. Let's go to credits and hang out for a few minutes.
Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I started the show and I continue the show to bring valuable conversations to small business owners, entrepreneurs, founders, startups, and the like. Conversations about marketing, about networking, about business development, sales, finance, leadership, and all the things that go with running a business to try and move the needle away from the high failure rate that business owners experience, much higher than it needs to be if you take the time to learn the basics, learn the fundamentals, and learn from the guests that we bring on the show. It's incumbent upon the business owner who wants to be successful to find the information that's out there to learn. So we hope that the guests that you hear and the conversations we have are valuable and help you in your business, and hopefully help us move the needle a little bit. If you have any suggestions, please write the show, introduce us to guests that we'll have on the show. How can you help us, though, continue to help you? First, please subscribe to the channel. The more subscribers we have, the more eyeballs we get, the more things we can bring to the show, the more resources we'll have to bring you quality content. Like us, if you listen to the audio version, leave us a 5-star review wherever you can. If you follow our posts, if you see our posts, please share those posts, share the content, and link back to our law firm website, which helps us to continue our SEO marketing and grow our firm and help small business owners. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for being a listener, and I want to thank you for staying a listener.